Welcome to the People's Guild. If you are invested in Splinterlands or if you are just curious about Splinterlands, then this podcast is for you.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.
All right, guys. Well, we got a super special guest. I think it's safe to say the biggest of our young tenure as podcasters here at the People's Guild. Want to make the most of this man's time. So quick introduction. We got the Sultan of Splinterlands, the chief executive overlord himself, Dr. Aggie. Welcome to the People's Guild, man. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being a part of our community.
Just before we start, I just want to make sure that you realize that I'm not from Oklahoma.
You know, that is one of my favorite conversations in Texas of like that young being a British accent. You sound funny. You're from Oklahoma.
Right. So
it's a good warm up. Where are you from?
Just a place called Stockport, just outside Manchester, northwest.
Yeah,
Northwest.
I mean, that's the accent that she was poking at, but just clearly clueless.
So, like when me and Ben were like, we've been doing the podcast for like 5 months now, and like our first episode, we were just thinking what to do, and we decided on doing it on the team and finding out more about the team, or letting people know, like we actually knew about the team, but letting our listeners and the community learn more about the team. And one of the great things we found through the various interviews was your like philosophy of like the way you started Splinterlands with the whole peace, prosperity, and freedom. And I'm just wondering if you could just tell our community a little bit more about that, because I feel it's at the core of what Splinterlands is.
Yeah. So when I am not a huge fan of governments, and I think governments, and particularly fiat money created by governments, causes a lot of problems. And it you know, I started going down that path in 2012. I was like totally a bootlicking statist, you know, for many years. And then I started questioning everything in 2012, and it took me years. You know, I always wanted something better. I could always tell that the world was screwed, and I was like, man, it's screwed. We really just need more government. And if we had more government, it did a better job, we'd be fine. And I started waking up out of that mindset of like, wait, no. Actually, the problem seemed every time that I like really investigate it and pull the sheets back and look at what is the problem, it kept coming back to me as, you know, government, and particularly how they created money and how they used money caused a ton of problems. And, you know, when I tried to narrow down and look at root cause analysis, you know, I'm a PhD chemist, and I taught high school for a little. I was a professor for a while. I worked in industry. One of the companies that I worked for was BASF, and they had this whole process logic around root cause analysis. And I started applying the principles that I had started picking up of what is root cause analysis to, well, what is the root cause of all of the problems? And it helped me narrow down that the problems that I saw was that there's constant war on this planet, and there's no need for that much violence. It benefits a handful of people at the literal life expense of others. I recognized that there was poverty everywhere. And I used to think the government would be the cure for that. But later I realized, no. It like this system endemically creates poverty, and that you need a different system of distribution. Like right now, if you look at the scoreboard, it's like 1% of the world controls like 70% of the wealth. And that's not a reasonable position. Like I'm not like a socialist and I'm like, everybody should have the same amount. But man, it's totally broken the way that it is right now. You know, like the wealthy and the most productive should have more. You want an opportunity for your productivity to grow. But if it's like this tiny sliver has everything, you know, to me, it didn't come out to like, well, those people are that much better. It was, no, those people have figured out a way to steal from the rest of us. That's not their inherent, you know, aptitude coming through. It's that they're a bunch of thieves and scoundrels, and they had figured out how to siphon wealth from everybody else. And then lastly, in order to protect that, they had all this mechanism, typically, or like the worst case example of it is like the Chinese, social monitoring and credit score and social scores. Like that stuff is terrifying. And so when I was looking at all that, and I said, oh, you know what? I think I figured it out. The big problems here are war, poverty, and this surveillance state. And so then I started thinking, what's the antidote to this? And it's peace, it's prosperity, and it's freedom. And at that point, I hadn't discovered crypto, but right around then, that's when I found crypto, and I was like, this tool. At first, I mocked it. At first, I thought that was dumb, but the more that I got into it, I'm like, wait, this shit isn't dumb. It's incredible. Like there's no more powerful tool on the planet to actually protect free speech. Like a decentralized blockchain, nobody can censor you. Nobody can kick you off that platform. That's amazing. Okay, if I want to go do voluntary exchange of financial goods with you, there's no entity that can stop me. I don't have to beg the bank for my money. I don't have to say, please, Mr. Banker, sir, can I have access to my funds? It's my keys. It's my crypto. I send it wherever I want. And, there's parts of this that's definitely like surveillance capitalism. On a blockchain is public, but it's also only pseudo public, right? Like if I never dox myself that Aggroed is Dr. Jesse Reich, nobody would necessarily know that. And so, you could follow my account and know Aggroed bought this and Aggroed bought that and he did this or they did that, but you'd never necessarily know that, this guy with that social security number living in that, state in that region of that country was doing it. And so there's a pseudo anonymity to it all that to me represents a level of freedom. And, it's up to me whether or not I want to disclose more about that. So I realized crypto was this absolutely incredibly powerful tool. And what I wanted then was to get that in the hands of as many people as possible. And so in 2018, there was no consumer facing anything in the world of crypto. And we said, we should really make a game. Gamers are like a natural fit for crypto because they're already working with multiple currencies. They're already familiar with the kind of complex math and decision making and computers that you might expect for crypto. So we said we got to build games, and that's the impetus of like we want to mainstream crypto. The best way to do that is gaming, and all of the decisions we make are really around how do we onboard the masses of people into crypto so that they can get the peace, prosperity, and freedom that crypto is the strongest tool on the planet to facilitate.
Love it.
Yeah, brilliant, Aggie. I think that will go a long way with the listeners. I know that those, I've heard some of those points, as Kieran mentioned in various interviews in our, kind of conducting research about you and the team. And it really struck a chord with us in particular. And I think that's a big part of our reason why we kind of have chosen to hitch our wagons to the Splinterland caravan, man. We're excited to have you at the helm, so appreciate you elaborating on that. I am curious, and kind of shifting in a little bit of a different direction, but somewhat on a tangent. How would your parents describe what you do?
Well, unfortunately, my mother passed, so she doesn't have too much to say these days. But my dad is, I think it's taken him a while to figure this out. He's a medical professional. He works with big pharmaceutical companies, and he's definitely fairly establishment type. There's a reason that I grew up in the establishment. It's that both my parents were very much strongly, I'm like super proud to be American, but it's like the Mark Twain quote of love for your country always, love for your government when it deserves it. And I think the people of my parents' generation, the boomers of the world, they got too easy on their government, and they were too trusting of their government, and I think that they were kind of asleep at the wheel. And for a lot of us that question the efficacy of government these days, there's a lot of boomers that push back because they've gained a lot, or they benefited a lot, or they believe them and they trust them, and they're not out there questioning everything that they do. So I've had a rough time, sort of at various times with my dad and my family regarding like what I'm doing, why I'm such like a evangelist, not just for the game, but for crypto. They don't all understand it. They've all been successful in the system, and it rubs some of them the wrong way that I'm doing this. But they also recognize that like this game is a success. Like 3 billion games played. That's like Burger King numbers, right? Like now we billion burgers served. We hit that in 4.5 years in terms of the number of games, right? So there's something incredible that this community is doing, and even crypto skeptics have to like high five us in terms of, okay, there's some there that dog can hunt. I don't know if I like every aspect of this, but there's definitely there's a business and there's an entity there that is providing some value to some people.
What in terms of, like you said, you guys are building this decentralized game, like, and with regard to government, like, have you encountered any obstacles as you guys have been building this? Like how easy is it to do it?
Well, we're in the United States, and the United States is not a particularly crypto friendly spot. So like, there are times where we lost a bank account simply for being related to crypto. We've been denied accounts or privileges for being associated with crypto. It's not, it's not like we're persecuted. There's not like federal IRS agents that have shot me or something yet, but it's certainly not friendly. I mean, I use the word a little tongue in cheek, and I don't mean to offend people, but I call it crypto racism, where there's like a fair amount of racism that, it's sort of like, these banks are for fiat, not for you. Go somewhere else. Like that has tones of racism to it, but obviously crypto isn't a race. So, it's not like any of this stuff is handed to us. We got to build it. We got to take it. We got to grow it. We got to make it. We got to, figure out a means to facilitate that growth with our community and take none of this for granted. It is all hard fought, and this has not been an easy slog.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you, like, in terms of, like the community, like did you when you kind of had this idea with you and Matt, did you ever envisage the community playing such a big role in the development of the game? Was that one of your plans?
It didn't take us long to settle on the 3 pillars of us making games: are community, economy, and gameplay. So that, that's now in like the corporate books of like, when we give presentations, like literally tonight, when I was talking about our values and how we build things, we design around community, economy, and gameplay. So we didn't have that defined on day one, but Matt and I were already very much aligned in that spirit. I don't know when we codified it, but it wasn't, I didn't have to like fight Matt to be like, hey, we need to be concerned about the community. The dude gets the vision. He's on board, and he's helping every way that he can.
Great. I'm curious. You kind of referenced this a little bit earlier, Aggie, in discussing the chemistry PhD, your previous life working in the labs and such. I'm curious, if anything, what has that journey overall been like for you, shifting out of the chemistry world into crypto world, and have there been any surprising parallels that you've kind of discovered along the way?
So the path went, I was in industry, and then I shifted to high school teaching, and then my mom passed, and then I went to college teaching. And when I was a professor, I started using an online homework system, and that homework system helped my students learn chemistry much faster and much better too. So I told the publishing company about it, and they hired me. And then I was pretty good at sales and helped the company grow. And they ultimately got purchased by one of the largest publishers in the world. They made $5 billion per year in their publishing. and I help lead sales up and down the East Coast of these ed tech chemistry products and science products. And what I would do is stand in front of professors at Harvard, Brown, Yale, Ohio State, Drexel, Community College of Philadelphia, University of Florida, wherever. They'd send me everywhere. There's a Johnny Cash song of "I'm an Everywhere Man," and I've been to all those places and more. So I got to travel a lot, and I would give these presentations, which felt like dissertation defenses. I'd have to sit in front of a team of professors. The biggest was probably like 40 or 50 other chemistry professors that I was presenting in front of, answering questions for. And, they're all involved stakeholders. They're intelligent. They weren't all necessarily aligned. And, my goal is to get the sale, but also to go kind of pedagogically get them on board with the approach that we were taking. And that skill set has actually been remarkably useful in what I'm doing here. Anything blockchain is almost immediately a college level course in terms of how difficult it is and how many different concepts you have to understand simultaneously for it to really sink in. So I feel like I basically went from professor of chemistry as my main gig to like sales engineer for chemistry to now sort of like sales engineer for blockchain products. And I had to learn a lot about how development happens and agile development and a process for how we do this, and really learning about like product design and product design process, people management. I had to pick up all these skills as I was going. I'm not like an MBA. I didn't go to school for business or anything. I'm trying to figure this out the best I can. But that whole process of sales and sales engineer and bringing teams of people on board, predominantly through educating them and consulting them on why this is a good choice, that's the exact skill set that I use day in, day out when I'm doing anything for this company, of like, how do I interact with other people and how do I treat them and how do I help them and how do I educate them and how do I steer them towards products that make the best fit for them. And how do we make partnerships? All of that is the kind of like business development stuff that I did for 10 years for ed tech. And I'm just applying it to crypto, which is by far an order of magnitude harder.
Nice. Well, yeah, and I can imagine the way you have gone about doing things is probably a little bit different now, right? Like before, like when you were just starting, you probably had to kind of speak to people directly. But like, are you finding that more and more people are actually coming to you guys now?
Oh yeah. I mean, like it used to be, who the hell is Splinterlands? And I talked to some of the biggest, like they were executives at some of the biggest video game companies in the world. And I would start my talk and I'd mention like, hey, I'm Aggie and my game is Splinterlands. Splinterlands is a trading card game. And they'd stop me and they'd say, hey, you don't need to do all of that. We know exactly who Splinterlands is. And I'd get like freaking goosebumps on my arm being like, that's a Fortune 50 company and they know my company. Like that has happened on multiple occasions and it gave me goosebumps every time of like, we are absolutely on the radar of the biggest companies in America. I mean, I don't know internationally to the same extent, but definitely American video game companies and crypto companies, they know who we are. I don't have to like tell, the big VCs and the big players, they're aware of Splinterlands for sure.
That is badass, man. I can imagine that feeling never gets old. That's got to be so exciting, and that just tells you you're on the right track, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I like what we're doing, and the partnerships that we're doing too are speaking what languages that I couldn't preach. You gotta show it, but Major League Soccer that has like 100 million fans that are part of it, right? So when we start partnering with them, that's the fourth largest sport in the United States. That's a real thing. That's a big enterprise. Yeah. And other companies, I don't like rattling the ones off that I don't have partnerships with, but the companies that I've met are as big, if not bigger these days. So we're building partnerships with some of like the best brands in the country. And we got to pick and choose and we got to find commercial terms that make sense. But We have a platform that I think can bring other brands onto it. And when you're a company that big, the thing that you really care about is scale. Like, hey, I got 1 billion fans. If I point them at you, will everything break? And for us to be able to say, well, we've played 3 billion games, like find me another game in this ecosystem that's in the billions of uses. There aren't that many that exist. So we're in kind of a unique position, and I think we can help them. And that story seems to resonate. And, I look forward to bringing not just Splinterlands and making Splinterlands awesome, but bringing in sports and entertainment and social casino style games that support many, many times the size of a user base than what we do at Splinterlands.
Awesome.
Nice.
And sports league dropping next week, right? Pre-sale. I think I speak for everybody with saying how excited we are to see what happens with that.
Yeah. I mean, if we're trying to do things that other companies wouldn't do. For like Magic the Gathering and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh, like they never once did a sale that like went to some kind of DAO or was specifically for the community, and yet that's what we did for Rift Watchers. And now there's millions of dollars sitting in the DAO because of the work that we did that we didn't charge a dime for. With the Genesis League sports piece, 20% of the initial tokens are going to SBS stakeholders, and we're not charging you for that. There's no fee, there's no claim, there's no process other than here you guys go. Thanks for supporting us. And there's not a lot of projects that I can look at and be like, hey, thanks for 20% of the supply just because we were here earlier, and there's literally no pre-sale for that. So there's not like a group of VCs that are going to undercut our players. Literally the people that have it are the Splinterlands community. And I don't know a better way to say thanks than to do it that way. You guys are the ones that helped us get here. You guys are the ones that get this benefit. And there's nobody that has a more senior position or claim to that than you. And that's how we built it.
Yeah, it feels so different. Like I've been in the game for just over a year now, and the game I entered to the present day game it just feels very different. It just feels like there's really strong foundations now that the foundations were there before, but you've definitely built on those foundations.
And we feel that way too, honestly. Like that Matt and I in particular had ideas and like general sense wanted to go, but nailing down the specifics of all this has been a challenge and not always completely intuitive. And I think I don't want to be like the US patent office guy that said there's no new developments that'll ever happen. There's still plenty of stuff that I want to put into this, but I feel like we have a much stronger base and we're much more confident in where we are now in terms of the pieces that we've put in place, what we still have to do. There's always questions around like every week, what should we prioritize and how do we make this thing incrementally better? But I don't feel that same, clutch in my heart being like, there's something missing from this game. Right now it's still land and we want to put stuff in, but all that stuff is in development. It's all in motion. So like, but when there wasn't SPS, we were like, there's something big here really missing. And I don't currently have that same like angst feeling about the game.
Yeah. Like, do you still feel like I try to describe to my friend like back home about the game and just just a card game, but it's sometimes I find it quite hard to kind of describe sometimes and just to get people in like just to come in. But like how would you describe Splinterlands now? Is it like can you still describe it just as a game?
So the best, I think I like to teach through contrast and teach through analogy. Just coming up with some one line thing, I think it's too hard to get.
Mm.
So recently, as I've been trying to explain to people what the hell this thing is, I say, well, look at Bitcoin. Like before Bitcoin existed, you really only had fiat currencies, and there wasn't anything else to choose from. And a bunch of folks got together and said, no, like we need to decentralize this. More people need to have more say, and those particular bankers need to have less say. And so they decentralized money. And what Splinterlands is doing is sort of taking that and applying it to video games as well. Like for way too long, your Web 2 games have been there extracting wealth at the expense of their community. And that feels kind of like central banks to me that are not like in line with their community. And what I'm trying to do, and what this company is trying to do, is really create decentralized gaming. And that's going to happen in layer after layer, but the same benefits you get by taking a currency and turning that into a decentralized currency, I think you get the same kind of benefit in building a decentralized game. You look at like Blizzard, and somebody said free Taiwan or free Tibet or free whatever, and they start kicking people off the platform. You're not allowed to play here. You can't do that. You can't say that. We're taking away your funds. We're taking away your account. You can't do that stuff in blockchain.
Yeah.
I might hate your face, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's not like, you can't own cards or you can't do something. That's the antithesis of what we're doing. But what we want is for the players to be owning the nodes, and we want the players to be controlling the network, and we want the players to have that final say in terms of how this game operates. And that to me is wildly different than what other people are trying to do. They're building their completely centralized game on a decentralized blockchain, and that's certainly a step in the right direction. But what we're trying to do is build a decentralized game on a decentralized blockchain, and really hand the power over to the players. And we're still like ecosystem participants, so it's not like we're punting to the community and running away. We're going to try to figure out alongside of the community what are the biggest needs that we have. We're an important player in this as a company, as one of the biggest development pieces here, but we shouldn't be the only ones. And if players want developments that we're not working on, they should be able to use the DAO to hire other people and create, add on to the open source software that we'll release that allows us to all sort of add new features collectively. And we'll continue. I have no plans to like abandon Splinterlands. We'll continue to grow this thing and help it and add new features and add new components and figure out new rewards and all that. But it shouldn't just be us. It should be this whole community doing it, and that's the vision. So if you need a soundbite, it's something like what Bitcoin did for money by decentralizing money, Splinterlands is doing to games by decentralizing video games.
We're gonna soundbite the shit out of that, Eggy, just to let you know. So reflecting on, it's been a long journey for you guys, and like Kieran just mentioned, since he came in a year ago, it's it feels like we've done a 180-degree turn, and the business is bolstered. The tech development is all there, and getting prepared for land. And just looking back, I came in February, and just reflecting on those last 6 months, 7 months, it's changed so much. What for you and for the leadership team, what has been the most surprising kind of aspect or elements of 2022 for you?
It's not. I don't want it to be surprising in a bad way. I want it to be surprising in a pride and proud way. So back in February, I got the whole team together and I brought them down to Florida, and I said, all right, guys, we got to figure out how to do this. And that doesn't, and again, it's not my like leadership here is not, let me tell you how to do this. My leadership is to be like, let's create a space. Let's talk this through. Let's figure out how we all need this to work. And let's make sure that this machine is cooking. And, before we could, we maybe got a big piece of a project done once every 3 months or once every 6 months. It was for the number of people we had, it was pretty fast. But compared to now, we just did 3 freaking pre-sale sellouts in 9 days for new products, right? Like that's more development in 9 days than we would have had in 9 months previously, right? And so the piece to me was getting this team to function, to come together, to work as a team, and to have the freedom to sort of build the components that they need to communicate back and forth, and to constructively criticize each other too. No, I can't build it like that. You have to help me with this, and I need these files by Friday, and this guy has to put that thing in by Monday, or else I can't do it on Thursday. And it's this mix of communicating your needs, holding each other accountable, holding ourselves accountable, getting these designs in place. And I try not to stand in my company's way. We hire the best people that we can, and then we say, go do something awesome. I don't hire the best people we can to say, build what I want. It's figure this stuff out with us. And I think we get a lot done in a short amount of time because we give a lot of delegated authority to the team. And so if I gotta, rather than pick on just any one project of that went really well, what I think is going really well is just the sheer amount of code and project that we are shipping out on a weekly basis is at a staggering pace for the company and the size that we are. And I'm not just surprised, but deeply proud of how functional, competent, and effective our team is.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the things that we as the players just don't hear of. So it's great to hear, because people will complain about this and complain about that, but I think we are not privy to what the team is seeing has got planned down the road. So that kind of leads me to the question is in terms of all these projects that you just drop here, just dropping each week, which one do you foresee to have the greatest benefits for the community in the long term?
I like brands, and not only do I like brands, but I like cultish brands. Crypto is hard, and you have to have some kind of incentive that pulls you over the line to say, yes, I'm going to take my time and devote it to this and learn this. If you don't care, you struggle once or twice and you're all right, screw this, I'm done. But if it's something you really care about because you have that strong personal attachment, then that I think can help get you over the edge. And so from that perspective, I'm really excited about the kind of new venture stuff that we're doing, which is all around Genesis League sports. Because I think doing fantasy games, prediction games, and sports management games, we start getting into real life celebrities, real life heroes, real life people, in the way that Kron is cool as a character, but there's nobody behind Kron tweeting, right? And he can't tell you why Splinterlands is so awesome and why you should do it. It doesn't have that authority or celebrity appeal that if at some point we get Tom Brady or somebody like that talking about our game, that might help pull you in. Or if we start bringing in the soccer stars and they start talking directly to their audience about our soccer game, I think that'll go a long way. And there's just a lot of these different team sports that we're talking to that I think we can bring into the Genesis League sports ecosystem. And so we can have fighting and racing and football, basketball, baseball, hockey. And as we add all of that together, I think we get something pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think it also says a lot for Splinterlands that people are willing, because why choose Splinterland? They could find someone else to do it, right? But they've come to you, or you guys have negotiated something, and they're putting their trust in you. So it's great to see.
Well, we're one of the few companies that have actually figured out how to do billions of games, right? So like, when I talk to these brands, there's lots of people that could build them a platform. We're not the only one that can like mint NFTs, but how many of them have actually made games, and how many of them have actually made games that have been played billions of times? That's a short list. So until a lot of other games had to figure out how to build that community, how to build that economy, how to get the gameplay that attracts all these people, we're in a different class for a while.
And I think it bears mentioning that we struck that next billion marker in the midst of a pretty significant bear market, right? And it doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Yeah, I hear that kind of thought of like, this bear doesn't feel like other bears. Like we've been here I've been in crypto since 2016, and I was on. Matt and I like held steam when it went from $10 to like 8 cents, right? And we were like, we need this. We're going to keep holding on to it. And at various points in there, crypto felt dead. It felt like nobody was there, nobody cared. But I think in particular, NFTs have really like rallied the people, and so like NFT NYC had 15,000 people in it in a pretty crappy point in the bear market. And it still feels that way, that like, one of my board members, he runs a company, and it's a Web2 company. And he was in front of a VC, and they were like, hey, what's your Web3 plan? And it's like, oh, that's what's happening now, that the VCs are all asking you, what's your Web3 plan? How are you functioning? Even companies that don't claim to have anything for Web3, that makes me rather bullish, right? Like if the smart money people are asking about Web3 products in every conversation, this is the way we're driving.
Do you feel that Splinterlands is in a better position to take on the next bull run? Because like I got into Splinterlands probably because of that bull run back in like August, September 2021, like lots of people. And that was one of the main gripes that people had. They couldn't buy cards, or cards were so expensive. It didn't stop some people like myself buying those cards. But do you guys feel that you guys are in the, like, you've built something that can sustain that next bull run?
Yeah, I mean, and that's a big part of why, like in some ways I think of us as like an arcade, right? Imagine you go down to the arcade, you play some skee ball and you get some tickets, you play some hoops and you get some tickets, you play some other games and you get some tickets, and you want to get rewarded for that. And so I think we have to have our shelves stocked with a variety of different products that you can buy, that are like, well, what can I get for this SBS? What can I get for this DEC? What can I get for this voucher? Why am I fighting so hard for it? And my answer is, well, here's some PFPs. Here's a different set of cards. Here's an entire line of sports products. There's going to be some social casino style games. And to me, I feel like, there's typically the prize room in there's a prize room in your arcade, and I'm trying to fill out all the prizes in that. And so hopefully that analogy makes some sense. And so like when the bull market hits, I don't turn to you and say, oh shit, I better get some products out here. Like I am stocking my shelves with lots of products in anticipation that at some point the bear market ends, and at some point the bull market starts, and I don't have to make all of my dollars right now at the low point of the bear, when I hope it's the low point of the bear. But there's a whole world of opportunity, and I'm making sure that my shelves are completely stocked and ready for a bull run.
Nice.
Are you keen to? I think the last kind of Chaos Legion sellout prediction I remember you dropping was November, December. Are you keen to drop an updated time frame on when you expect?
It's officially still there. I am worried that as we keep adding more products to the shelves, there's less buying pressure specifically on Chaos Legion. But the way that these things tend to go, and I don't mean this to be financial advice, but this is the journey and this is the experience that I've seen, and I want to relate that, is that like the minute that SPS really catches a bid, then the value of what you can earn goes up substantially. And as a consequence of that, the value inherent to the cards changes rather rapidly. And so I don't think it's going to take too big of a change in order to shift people's mindset from, did you see what, Zawi had like some 40,000 SPS claim that she got went in one battle in Champion. And everybody was talking about, did you see how much SPS she got? But if SPS is worth more, that change will be, did you see how much money she got? Do you see how much value that is? It's not just the SPS, but they're thinking about that in terms of like houses, cars, like life-changing amounts of money if SPS goes up. And I think people are going to work pretty hard to earn that and are willing to take bigger risks to earn that. And so I would imagine in a relatively short time period, in an bull market that SPS catches wind, prize value goes through the roof, demand goes through the roof, and in a very short time, we experience a rather nice renaissance in terms of, card prices escalate to the point where the flippening happens. People are buying packs to sell the cards on the market to be able to go buy more packs. And you get kind of this rip where, one day we had 5 million packs and you're staring back like a month later and the whole thing is out. So to me, we're not in that position now, but when bull markets happen, and especially if there's a strong bullwhip, it's not, crypto, when it goes up, it likes to go up in like 2 weeks. And crypto, when it goes down, likes to go down in like 2 years. So I don't think it will necessarily take a super long time to kind of reverse course for just how much value there is in the ecosystem. Like one chart that I stare at, there's like roughly $270 million worth of assets in the Splinterlands ecosystem right now. And in a quick, a whiplash bull market, that could quadruple or more in a very short. So
and then I think sorry, carry on.
I just wanted to finish that. Like the goal is to prep for that, and I don't know when it'll be, and I don't know how strong it will be, and I don't have like a crystal ball, but I know for a fact that what follows a bear market is a bull market, and to me, I got to be prepped, and I have to have my store ready and my shelves stocked, and here are all the different products you can buy. And especially in a bull market, as opposed to a bear, for the love of God, there's not enough for everybody. Please push and shove, get what you can, because it's going to develop the next thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think the most common comment in Discord will be, why didn't I buy more SPS at 7 cents, right? So just before, I know we're kind of getting close, unfortunately, to the end, but I just want to finish and talk about Splinterfest and like how amazing that's going to be. I've been listening to Aftersound. He's just, you can just hear it in his voice, him and Darkest Night are just like getting pumped for the, I think just like the whole meeting the community. I think people are really excited about that. So like, what are you mainly excited about for Splinterfest?
I haven't been involved in the planning of much of this. And that to me is like a sense of pride. Like I put this in the hands of the marketing team and they ran with it. And one of the things that they did is they asked all the other parts of the company to go present and talk about what we're doing. And I make the joke that like, if our players could, they would attach like a GoPro to Cryptomancer's head and be able to follow every conversation and every line of code and really be like completely in his business in order to figure out what this team is doing and what we're working on. And, I can't do that 365, but, here's a day or two where, to the best that we can, we're going to open up the fishbowl and say, talk to our guys, talk to our team. We're flying out like 60 people from the team. Go interact with them. Tell them what's important to you. Tell them what you care about. And, it's not filtered through Uncle Aggie. Talk to our guys directly, pitch the ideas that you have or what's important to you, and tell it directly to the guy that literally codes it or writes it or tells a story about it or draws it. Like if you have something that's important to you, get it across the line to the team. And, that interaction between our team, our community, our players, our leadership, and just how we try to incorporate all of that. That's what I'm excited for. That to me is where like creative genius is born out of events like this. And let's see what we do as a community when, it's kind of like a big giant cross-pollination event, right? Like, we're growing. And then here's this pollination. And then look at all the shit that comes afterwards. I think it'll be an eye-popping experience for many of us.
Wow.
Awesome, man. Well, we will certainly be watching from afar and jealous of all the partying that is happening over at America's Playground in Vegas.
Ask him about Splinterfest Asia.
Oh, that's my follow-up question. Are we getting Tokyo 2023 to call home for Splinterfest?
Yeah, let me get through this Splinterfest, and then we can start figuring out what the next one is.
Sure. Well, cool, man. Last question. Are those mutton chops? Are those here to stay until Chaos Legion sells out? Are those like the playoff chops there?
No, you might not be able to see it, but I'm starting to grow my beard in. It's getting cold, so they're very seasonal. So it's 9 months of 9 months of chops and 3 months of beard. For maybe it'll be a little bit more than 3 because I'll probably do this through February. But I gotta stay warm, and being a big fuzzball is the way that I typically go.
Nice. Awesome, man. Well, I think I speak on behalf of the full People's Guild community and thanking you for your time, Ag. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. I'd certainly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule, especially pre-Splinterfest, to hop on with us. And any final words of wisdom and or FOMO for the people?
No, it's just, it's sturdy your loins, and you got to push and shove. It's like, there's a lot of people that are going to want these assets. They'll go at whatever pace they go out at $20,000 Bitcoin. And the second that you see any kind of turnaround, I wouldn't expect a lot of these things to last on the shelf very long. So get them while you can, dollar cost average in, make smart choices. Don't FOMO too hard on anything, but make steady, keep stacking sats essentially, just do what you can to get the good deals when you see them, and try to ride the wave with the rest of us as best as you can. As I can't tell you when the next bull market hits, but when it does, it's going to be fun as hell.
Yeah, I also wanted to say a big thank you. I think how not easy, but how approachable you are in Discord, and me and Ben talk about all the time. Like there's no CEO anywhere where you can just like throw out a question and then he will reply. So I think, the community really loves that part of, the way you and the team go about doing that. And I think that kind of helps, just build a really beautiful relationship with the community.
So my thought on this, and I hope this comes off more humble than humble brag. But, things like the Bible and other groups would talk about a role of servant king. And there's a brief moment where I am king of this business, not the community, but of the business. And that's in setting priorities. and I can say, this is our priority. This is the business need. This is what we have to go after. And in that moment, I am king. And in all other moments, I am servant. I am servant to this mission. I am servant to the employees. I am servant to this community. And it is my goal to serve as many people, to help them come into crypto, to experience peace, prosperity, and freedom, to learn this kind of this way of being that is different than what we are taught in schools and different than what the governments would have us do, of how we can treat each other, how we can help one another rise up, and how we can have nice things as a community, especially when that mindset of the community is we all go to the same moon. And so that matters a lot to me. And I try to think about that of, how do I help my team? How do I help my players? How do I help this community? How do I help my partners grow? How do I help the businesses that are forming in this ecosystem? How do we help them grow as well? And I see myself as servant to all of them. And I don't know if that comes across, but that's how I view this role. And hopefully it allows us to continue to grow, and it allows the participants to experience peace, prosperity, and freedom in ways that they haven't been able to achieve prior to interacting with Splinterlands.
Wow. Yeah, that's the perfect way to end the podcast. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, you have been listening to
People's Guild.